Well, hey guys, and welcome to another Ask ZAC. So today I wanted to talk about one of the most popular overdrive pedals and the guy that made it popular. So the pedal is the Nobels ODR-1, and the guy that made it popular is Tom Bukovac. So I had never heard of the ODR-1 before until I was working for Brad Paisley. We had just recorded the rhythm tracks for the Mud on the Tires album at a studio called The Castle, which was a stone building built by Al Capone's guys as a place for him to stop off between Chicago and Miami. So there's also some other stopping off points. And so this stone building looks like a castle, and it was a place for him to party and rest before they got back on the road and went, to Miami and back. So that's where we did the rhythm tracks. And then, of course, that studio, because it's bigger, is more expensive. So then we went to a smaller studio to do overdubs, because, of course, you don't have as many musicians, and you're kind of doing like one guy at a time. So that way we could do lots of guitar overdubs with Brad, because that's what he liked to do. So the studio was called Thelma's, and that was owned by one person, and then the house that was attached to it was owned by another guy named Tom Bukovac. So I met Tom, of course, through that, and Tom started talking about this green pedal, and he called it the secret weapon. So here it is. It's an original green Nobels ODR-1. So I asked Tom, I said, well, where do I get one? He said, well, go to Guitar Heaven. So I went to Guitar Heaven, which is a store that's not around anymore here in Nashville. But at the time, they were the first one to have like a lot of pedals. They had a great guy named Corey Daniels that would pull out a bunch of pedals and plug them all in and say, play through all of them, see which one you like the best, which was brilliant on his part because you were comparing stuff. And most of the time when you're comparing 5 or 6 pedals or whatever, you'd end up saying that you liked one and you'd buy it most of the time. So I tried out the Nobels. I liked it. And I said, yeah, I want to take it. And it was $50. Still have the box too. And so he was taking the pedal and he was putting it back in the glass case. And I said, wait, I want to buy it. He said, oh, well, I'm going to get you one from the back. We've got a bunch of them. This is just the demo one. And something in me said, you want that one? So I said, no, Corey, I want that one. And so he said, well, okay, but I mean, it's the demo one. I said, I don't care. I want it. So I bought it. And of course, later on, I found out that Nobels are pretty inconsistent. They all sound like a Nobels, but they all, they're kind of all in the same family, but they're all different. So I got it. And I enjoyed it, and you used it quite a bit. Then things started kind of moving along for Tom, and I really felt like, to back up just a little bit, I had started writing for Vintage Guitar Magazine, and I had my Ask ZAC column, and I was really enjoying doing that. And I saw this guy, Tom, and he was very different because he was playing Gibson guitars a lot. He was using this Nobels ODR-1. He was he had his own thing. He was nothing like Brent Mason or Reggie Young or all these other cats. He was his own guy. He was the first, kind of session guy with kind of a rock swagger, and he was more of a rock player. So I pitched the idea of doing my first interview with Vintage Guitar with Tom, and they agreed. And so in the September 2005 issue of Vintage Guitar Magazine with Brian Setzer and my good buddy Red Volkart up here, this has the interview with Tom Bukovac. So I was thrilled to get to sit down with him, and we had a good time. And this is the article in all of its glory. Again, my first interview ever, Tom Bukovac. I took the photos also because there was no budget for a photographer. So there it is. And I'm proud of it. I'm proud that Tom was my first interview. So thank you, Tom. I had friends mention the interview and say that they ended up picking up a Nobels because of that. Some of the other famous users like Guthrie Trapp, Jed Hughes, and others, a lot of the guys, they learned about it from Tom. Tom was evangelizing the Nobels ODR-1. He was telling me, he was telling everyone he met. In fact, I found out from a reliable source that during his tenure on the road with Wynonna Judd in the 90s, that he would even sell them from the stage, that he would buy cartons of them, and when guitar players would come up to him asking about what gear he was using, he said, "What you need to get is this," and he would sell them the one that he had. And so he would go through cartons of Nobels and selling them all over the U.S. So you got to give credit where credit is due. Tom Bukovac made this pedal what it is. And there's later versions like this silver one. I picked this up as a backup, and it sounds similar. They don't. That's the thing. I mean, people talk about, oh, the old green ones sound the best. It's like, well, they all sound different. You could get 10 of the old green ones, and Exactone actually did this. They got a bunch of the old green ones and plugged them all in. They all sounded different. They all sounded within the Nobels family, but there's so much variance between one and the other, and they would change the construction techniques. You could take 2 old green ones and open it up, and even as someone that's not technical, you could look and go, wow, the circuit boards look very different. They have different colored wires on them. The components are in different places. So that's kind of the story about the Nobels. It has a neat sound. So this is my Danocaster Blackguard with Ron Ellis pickups on the bridge pickup. Deluxe Reverb with a vintage 30 in it. This is dry. The Nobels. Really sweet sounding overdrive pedal. It sounded very different than anything else that was on the market at the time. It didn't sound like a tube screamer or a full drive, or a Rat or a blues driver from Boss. Had a unique sound, had this neat low end thing, and I don't think it sounds. I know a lot of people think it sounds really natural. I don't know if it sounds natural, but it sounds like it sounds like a Nobels channel on your amp. It sounds like you just added a Noble, and I think it's a great channel. And that's why so many people have made copies of it. I mean, if you were to list the number of ODR-1 copies, I mean, you'd be 12 deep in no time. But it just has a really nice fatness, and but doesn't have as much of the mid-range thing like the Tube Screamer does. Jorgensen didn't use that, but anywho, that's a freebie. So you got to give credit to Tom Bukovac. He popularized this pedal. He evangelized it. He went all over the world preaching the gospel of the Nobels ODR-1. He still uses the pedal to this day. There's a Premier Guitar rig rundown, and still using them. So God bless him. So hope you've enjoyed today's episode, talking about the Nobels and Tom Bukovac, and kind of a trip down memory lane for me. So I hope you will subscribe. I hope you will share this, and let's keep this show going. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.